We ask that you please take your seats. We're going to go ahead and get started. First, we'd like to thank everyone for being here today. I am Latrice Griffin, Chief of Communications and Family Engagement for the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. We are so thrilled to have you here as we unveil this amazing work with the partnership between the EBR school system and Mayor President Broome's office. Just so you'll know the run of how things are going to go, we're going to have some brief comments by our Superintendent, Dr. Narcisse, then our Chief of Literacy, Dr. Lashley, and then finally, on behalf of our Mayor President, Ms. Leslie Chambers. And then after that, we'll open it up to question and answers. Okay? So first up, thank you all again for coming, and please welcome our Superintendent, Dr. Narcisse.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So excited today. Just really excited. Since I have been here in Baton Rouge, been excited about being the superintendent of EBR, but more excited about the direction that we're taking as a school system. As many of you may know, since I've arrived, we've been working tremendously hard on trying to capitalize on all of the resources and all of the great things we have in this city. And a part of that is to continue to move our work around literacy. Many board members, like I see Board Member Godet here, many of our board members have been really wanting to continue to improve our school system, and the task has been to try to build off every part of the work in that space. As you know, if you have not heard since I've arrived, I have stressed tremendously with the board around the early childhood education, especially in the area of literacy. As you know, the board adopted a strategic plan that was very aggressive, trying to make sure that we begin to look at how children performance is in our school system. And as much like other cities that are struggling in these areas around literacy, we know it's a civil right for us to make sure that children can read, write, and comprehend. And a part of that work is to try to make sure that we're also engaging our community to be able to make sure that all of the voices are heard in that process. When I arrived, we also engaged with the Mayor President Broome around trying to make sure how do we work collectively around ensuring that children across our city and our parish is able to read and to write and to do things. And so that's where the idea of creating this joint task force between the mayor's office, the school system, our school board, and all of us working together to ensure that we put an aggressive plan together to make sure that we can be able to do that. So in that collaboration and effort, it has laid a foundation for this goal to become a reality. As you know that our state, Louisiana, is 49th in the nation around education. But I tell folks, that doesn't mean the city of Baton Rouge and this parish has to be 49th. Our city is being very aggressive, and we want Baton Rouge to be the reading capital of Louisiana. And a part of being a reading capital is to work with the library services and all the partners that we have, from our universities to our parents to all the various stakeholders, to be able to move that work together. So therefore, in all these months since we arrived, we created what they call the Literacy Blueprint that you're going to hear about today. And a part of that literacy blueprint was be able to help work with families and parents around specific strategies that they can do in order to help children learn in our parish, and also to help our business partners do that as well with our community partners. If you may or may not know this, but we are also been moving around working with industries around internships for kids that we are moving forward on next year, and also building out more opportunities for our workforce development model and approach. And within all of those pathways, you have to make sure children are not only reading and doing well, but also making sure that they are able to comprehend as they become productive citizens in our parish and in our city. So in that process, we've been very clear about a couple of things. One, creating a literacy blueprint helps us first with getting early childhood in schools. 2, if you do that well in the beginning, then you can get kids ready for kindergarten readiness, as you've been hearing. And 3, if you keep continuing that pipeline, kids will do better from every single grade up and then become productive citizens to work in our great workforce here in our parish. And so I'm super, super excited about the partnership. I'm more importantly excited that we are collaborating and working together as a community. I tell folks, don't let anybody lie to you. Things are moving very well, and more importantly, it's coming all together as this is one piece of the big puzzle as we continue to build that work. And so in order to continue that work, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our Chief of Literacy, Dr. Barbara Lashley. She'll come up, provide you some specifics around this, and we're super excited. And then we can go ahead and kind of walk through this book a little bit around the great work with the partnership that we've had with ourselves and the Mayor's Office around this joint task force. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. This is indeed a pleasure to be here, and I'm so happy to share with all the folks in this room. We'll talk about how every single person in this room has had an input within this blueprint development. As Dr. Narcisa said, this is a work that we wanted to make sure that was inclusive of every stakeholder in this community. I am Barbara Lashley, your Chief of Literacy, and of the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. I wanted to make that known, and publicly here I stand in the gap for our school system. And this literacy business has been a love of mine over the last 30-plus years of my educational career. It's always been a passion. It's been my drive. It's the very being of my soul, and so it's been a great opportunity to be here in Baton Rouge to launch this with so many people. We knew when we came that this business of literacy was just not for the school system, but it's actually something that is a concern of the city, of the nation, and everyone involved. We knew that there were already great works going on with literacy here in Baton Rouge and across the nation. So the effort of this was just to pull those efforts and the best practices into a cohesive and actionable plan. And that's the key word is actionable. That's why when we introduce the blueprint, we make it known that this is our first version. It is a living document, and we intend to continue to collaborate. And as we begin to implement these strategies, we will continue to come back time and time again with our community stakeholders and my literacy team, whom I could not have done this without. All of those folks over there in the left-hand corner of the room, those are the people, along with our stakeholders, that help us to put this together. This is by no chance the last time that we will venture in this work. As a matter of fact, our goal is to set forth every quarter to bring back this Mayor's Joint Task Force and to look at how we're implementing. We will take comments and feedback from our community stakeholders, as well as look at our data from the results of the literacy pieces that we have implementing into our schools, and we will go back and we'll make changes in this blueprint. We want this blueprint to be our North Star, so to speak, as Dr. Narcisa has already mentioned. I just wanted to bring out, you might say, why literacy, and I just wanted to read, although we probably know these statistics, but why did we even venture on this work? According to the National Center for Educational Statistics, 1 in 5 U.S. adults age 16 to 65 have low literacy. Only 35 to 37% of students in grades 4 to 12 are proficient in literacy. And then, of course, as has already been mentioned, we are 49th right now, but it won't be for long. As I had a conversation in the back of the room, we want to take our spot back and then some. And how do you do that? How do you move up? You move up by focusing in and focusing on focus, as Dr. Narcisa always says, and you drive a few very important strategies throughout. And we're talking from birth to 12. And that's another thing you'll find about our blueprint is that it takes care of from birth to 12. So we want to get our parents involved. As you look through the blueprint, you will see that not only is it school related, but we also are endeavoring to reach out into our communities and get our parents involved in this movement as well. I want to, before I call up the mayor's office and hear from Ms. Leslie Chambers, I wanted to read you a quote directly from the blueprint, which on page 4 of the blueprint. When I saw this quote by Margaret Mead, I thought, how fitting is it from what we've just done? I mean, if you think about, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And so when we brought the Mayor's Joint Task Force together, we brought a core of people that were really passionate and concerned about literacy, and we said, we're going to start right here, and we're going to spiral out. So I definitely want to mention, and I know that Ms. Chambers will go ahead and help me to mention those stakeholders and those folks in the room that we could not have done this work without: library services, our educational, our EDs, our universities. All of our folks in the room helped to bring this about. So I just wanted to say that I am excited. I am more than excited. Please keep in mind that this is the first version of it. It is a working and a living document. And as Dr. Narcissa said, our aim is to make Baton Rouge the capital city, the literacy capital of Louisiana. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and have the Mayor's Office, Leslie Chambers. She is the Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and she's going to share some thoughts around this work as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is an honor for me to stand at this podium and to bring you greetings on behalf of Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome. I get excited personally when I hear conversations around the importance of literacy. I often tell people that I am a byproduct of early literacy. I can remember back when I was very, very young, my father purchasing an entire library of Britannica books at all levels, levels for children who are, as was previously mentioned, from the ages of 0 to 4 years old. Then the next step of books for children between the ages of 5 and 10 or so, and then the next level of books, and then the adult version of books. And so I know the importance and value, the necessity to bring literacy to the forefront of what we are prioritizing here in the city of Baton Rouge. And it's no secret either that our Mayor President also values literacy. She has always been and continues to be an advocate for education and understands its vital role in bettering the lives of the children and families of the city of Baton Rouge. I also was excited to hear Dr. Narcissa's comments around the literacy blueprint and how it involves the internships and workforce development piece. This is the type of work that is also important to our Mayor President. Part of the work-ready formula that produces young people to have confidence and to have the necessity and the necessary skills to support a successful transition and meaningful employment opportunities is based in literacy and the access to literacy. Collaborating with the East Baton Rouge Parish School System for the Literacy Blueprint is a natural evolution of the overall work our office continues to do surrounding community support and education. Mayor Broome joins in the goal of having Baton Rouge stand proudly as the literacy capital of Louisiana. This blueprint provides a roadmap to get us to that goal. And what is most impressive about the blueprint is that it is customized for the needs of our city. It uses national research and combines it with best practices, but also incorporates community as the lens through which we must view this very vital task. We want to serve as a model for other cities and other states for what can be accomplished when we help improve the lives of citizens, and when we collectively prioritize education. I also want to invite our community partners to become a part of this work, to promote literacy within the city parish of Baton Rouge. Some of our community partners, such as the Power Coalition, Imagination Leads, BR Alliance for Students, and Bonton and Associates, have already made a tremendous impact by donating seed funding for our pop-up book giveaways. These partners were able to raise roughly $10,000 to purchase books for us to hand deliver to families in some of the most vulnerable areas in our city parish. So we are excited about this initiative's endless possibilities. Our office will continue to be champions for the power of education and for empowering our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Narcisse, Dr. Lashley, and Ms. Chambers. At this time, I will ask that all three of you please come up so that we can open it up for questions. Do you have any questions at this time? Yes, ma'am.
In this, it has the first year is going to be really planning, and then the next year is the more implementing. So for the first year of this, I'm assuming going into the new school year, what's that planning really going to kind of look like? What's that going to mean for kids?
Okay. So as mentioned earlier, our plan is to, first of all, bring back our joint task force so that we can take a look at, now that we know more, we have data around how our instruction has been this past year. So the next year, in delving into the implementation, we'll take a look at the family, the pillar around family and community engagement in particular. That's where we're going to start, even though, and I will mention that we fashioned ourselves, we are in lockstep with the LDOE, with the Louisiana Department of Education. And so what we're going to do is look at that particular, that pillar first and see how we can connect with our families. We have communities engagement within our communications department right in our school district. We're going to lobby in with those parent pieces in the schools. And we're going to start to see how we can build out the best practices, starting from the parents and working our way back to how they can support the implementation of this plan moving forward.
And there's also a piece in here about teachers and training and also things that they will benefit from this. Can you talk about what this is going to look like for our educators?
Absolutely, and we've started some of that training. As you know, we were very fortunate to be able to put literacy coaches into all our schools. Well, not last year, not all, but this year, fortunately, all schools will have literacy coaches, and so they are going to be those champions within the schools, within the school itself, to drive the work. We already have those learning meetings that we started this year with our professional development, where we pull out our literacy coaches and we do what we call a through line and a capacity building training and professional development, because we feel that professional development should always be job embedded. It should be peer to peer, and that they are able to use it right away in that classroom. We'll continue that work this year as we move forward with our teachers. That's driving that work down to the teachers and then to the students.
And can one of you really just hit on, not being able to read from whether it's first grade or 12th grade as well as you should, how that can impact your entire life? Can one of you kind of really touch on that?
Yeah, so as we shared, as you heard from Dr. Lashley and Ms. Chambers, one of the challenges that we saw coming in, especially with our data, is that we don't do enough in helping kids pre-plan before they start schools. School actually starts when a child is born. And once that child is born, we should be developing tools and kits to help parents and families to kind of start working through them before they get into even pre-K or kindergarten, those things. And I think one of the big challenges that we have to continue to work through in the city is to be able to build an early childhood approach from 0 to 4 for children. Right now, we mostly focus on 4-year-olds, but you have 3-year-olds that we've been working on. We've been expanding our early childhood networks. And then there's also the 0 and 2, where we're working with daycare centers and others to be able to work with us. So when those children are able to go into school, they're in a pipeline to help us to move that work. And so a part of this is, we tell folks, is one piece of the entire puzzle. As you heard of Dr. Lashley, our goal is to try to make sure that we get families and communities first even familiar with what strategies are and what are the things they can do. I mean, families bring their best to children into schools, and so we have to keep educating them as they work with kids at home before they get into school, so we can have a very literate community. If you haven't heard a lot, but you probably heard from the state level, we struggle a lot in the K-2 area and those things, but all of that actually starts when children are actually born. And our goal is to make sure that we continue to develop that work. We start telling folks, nothing's impossible in doing this work, but it is going to take a collective approach as a community for us to do this.
Dr. Narcisse and Dr. Lashley, I know you mentioned, Dr. Lashley, that we do have some data now on how this year went. I think a lot of the public is still waiting on this data from the state. You guys have had a chance to look through some of what's been coming out so far. What are you seeing about the literacy work that's happened this past year, and how has that played out?
Yeah, so I'm going to let Dr. Lashley answer that, but let me just give some context, because we, as a system, we're a little bit more aggressive around how we thought about data. Most of the data in our schools were just based on the one state assessment. We tell folks it's a one-time test does not determine how well a child is. You must continuously assess them. So we put things in place that the board was able to approve to have a benchmark that we provide quarterly. We actually use the ANET benchmark for both ELA and math, but we use that to make sure that we can pre-predict how kids will do before they get to that one state assessment. And it also provides much more detail on helping parents figure out where children are having issues, whether it's around comprehension, fluency in reading, and those things. And so we've already seen from our ANET data initial progress already happening with children. And then now, as Dr. Lashley will talk to you when we get into our state level, we'll see what that progress is on the state assessment.
And you mentioned also we are awaiting our data to come from this past year that can look summatively at how we performed. But as Dr. Narcisse has already mentioned, we've been really leveraging the results around our ANET data over time to see, and it's a great predictor of what we may see when that data comes out. But more importantly, we couldn't wait for that data, and so what we did, we built 2 frameworks around some ways to collect some data in the real-time work within the classroom. And so those 2 frameworks, one of them of which we've seen, even from the ANET data, that our kids may have come in right at 41 in the first cycle, 41%, some of the grade levels, a specific grade level, and we noticed that cycle 3 that we're right at 51%. Those are the kinds of things that we need to see. We need to make the statement that this is a work that's not done overnight. It has to have time to move through. In fact, research says that it takes 3 years to actually see improvement when you're trying to work on a problem or practice. But we know what we really do love is that the needle is moving in the right direction. We see teachers utilizing their resources at a higher level. So when you talk about the data that we've collected this year and how we see the improvement in literacy, those are the things that we'll continue to drive through and that we're feeling really good about right now. We're heading in the right direction with those pieces.
I know the state hasn't released data, but you guys have some data on individual students, right? Have you been able to glean anything from that?
Yes, individual students, we look at subgroups, we look at those, and of course we don't share individual students' data, but as a collective group, we drive down to see which of those students are.
You've been able to aggregate some of that student data for your own purposes. I didn't know if there anything is becoming clear looking at that.
Yeah, so one of the things that we have seen in our data that we have to continue to work on is children's fluency level, on seeing, yeah, so seeing how kids are reading fluently. The challenge is not that a child can say a word out loud. The issue is that they have to comprehend it and comprehend what does it mean within a text. So as you can imagine, if me and you are, if I'm reading the newspaper and I can read the words that you write, Charles, and I can't figure out what it means, right, then it becomes a challenge in that space. And so, you know, the one thing that you always hear in education is from pre-K to 3, children are learning to read, and from grades 3 and on, they are reading to learn, right? And so all of those components have to be put in place in order to do that. But again, it all begins in early childhood education. It is so clear that we see when children are exposed as early as possible, when parents are engaged, when the community is engaged in having a lot of materials for reading and continue to help kids move through, you see their actual progression gets better. This is why, you know, it's so important, our partnership with the libraries and all of the community members with our post-secondary institutions, and also with all our advocacy groups and everything, that we have to have a collective approach in doing this with one direction. One of the things that I always share is when I took the job and came, the board was clear that not only we had to have performance metrics, but we had to make sure that we can actually execute them, and that's why we put those things in our strategic plan. We also tell folks we have a scorecard. If you go to our website, www.ebrschools.org, you can actually click on the actual scorecard to actually see where how kids are actually doing all those benchmark assessments, which are quarterly. And they're also real time. As I said, you know, the one test does not determine progression over time. You know, it's all about how you're consistently measuring kids, not only in the classroom, but quarterly, and then you're preparing them to continue to do better. And that leads you into having a literate community that actually helps you with our economy, our workforce, and those things.
We have time for one more question, if anyone has any.
Can I ask a question? You know, part of the
Yes.
Are you going to continuously come out and share success stories during the planning and implementation process? Because one of the things that gets people excited and motivated is to continuously share those stories. Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're working tremendously hard, actually I even see BR parents here, you know, all the different groups is, you know, we don't do enough sharing our good work. We do a lot of, I say diagnosing the problem, but there is a lot of good things that are happening in our community. I mean, I'm sure if the mayor was here, she would tell you, but you know, the reality is, you know, sometimes we have to work tremendously hard on providing that information to communities, engaging it with different languages, and being able to involve all of that work. So one of the things that we are doing tremendously as we start this year's work is being able to share our work. We've been working, there's been an early childhood network that's been going on for a while. There's been a whole lot of stuff with teachers working. I mean, right now we have our summer camps that are going on. Principals are working with their summer bridge program. Our principals here in the room with us, Aaron here from Glasgow, that's here. I mean, so, you know, there's so much good stuff going on, but we have to tell the actual story, and a part of that is to actually get people to see it. One thing that you'll hear say about a lot about this year is nothing is impossible. You know, the possibilities are all about what you believe they are, and I think that collectively as a community, we have all the resources in Baton Rouge to do it, but we have to be okay with going in one direction and then staying focused to actually do what we say we're going to do in our work. And we are appreciative of all the advocacy groups that help us in that strategy and process.
Well, that is it. Thank you all for attending, especially to Dr. Narcisse, Dr. Lashley, and Ms. Chambers from the Mayor's Office, and of course our community stakeholders, our literacy team, for being amazing. Thank you all, and hope you have a great rest of your day.